Hello everyone, and welcome back to another video. I know. I've heard your complaints. You all want some fun videos, and I just haven't been doing a lot of fun recently, but honestly, my life has not been very fun in the last few months. That's a lie. It has been fun. But in terms of like the topics that come to me, they've not been very fun. And I do want to put some fun on my channel. I'm just getting things together. I want to do 1,000 subscriber special like I did for 50 and for 100 and I think for 500 as well. I really want to do a special, but I'm trying to pull together some ideas. I don't know who to involve. I really want to involve, people who are important to me. I want to involve Alicia. She's my constant and I haven't seen her in so long. Girl, I miss you. Come back on my channel. People miss you. People have been asking about you. Like, where are you? We need you back on this channel. I wanted to do some stuff with Zara. I may be doing something with her tomorrow. But I'm still waiting for people to confirm things with me, because that is the biggest problem I'm having right now. I really don't want to sit here and talk about my day, because I want to talk about nihilism, and as we all know, none of it means anything. But I've been in a job hunting cave. I'm currently doing a lot of I would say physically intensive work just to get by. And I'm fine, I'm living, I'm happy, I'm chilling, and I've been in the meantime, like commuting and in the quiet moments of my day, I've been reading a fair bit of philosophy, and I didn't know whether or not to script this, because I want it to come out to be authentic, and I don't typically script most of my videos. The ones that I do script sound very, very thought out, and I don't want that, because I want this to be just straight from my brain to you, like it's just a conversation between friends. When I end up scripting things, they end up sounding super poetic and contrived, because I am an artist, and I don't want it to sound that way. I want it to sound messy, and I want you to see the process that I'm working through. And philosophy has just been one of those subjects that I have never really invested in. First of all, because I find it really confusing, and second of all, because I came from a religion where I thought that if I ever did question any of the things in it, it would take me out of it, and I really didn't want to do that at the time. Obviously, now is a different story. I'm fully out of it, but and that's kind of why I'm trying to invest time in even. Okay, the real tea is that even after leaving religion, I still didn't find a lot of value in looking into philosophy, because I didn't, at the time, soon after I left religion in 2017, I had so many other problems than sitting around and thinking about the meaning of life. Also, I was going through an existential depression, which I learned today that's what it's called. I was just having an existential crisis for a whole year, didn't know what to do, just wanted to die. But for those of you who stuck around for a while, and by a while I mean for the last 3 or 4 months, I uploaded a video to this channel where I had essentially just recorded me having an existential crisis. And anytime I do have an existential crisis, I rewatch that video, and it actually restores my sense of self really, really quickly. So I would recommend it to any of you who feel comfortable doing that. But I remember after I posted that video, a lot of people told me that it was a really powerful thing to do. And I didn't understand why. I still kind of don't understand why, because it was just me having a mental breakdown and posting it online. Not many people would be commended for doing that. And by the majority of people, I was commended for doing it. But in that video where I had recorded my existential crisis, and I think that's what it's called. I'm not going to link it. Y'all can find it if you want. If you want to see me just cry well, I wasn't crying throughout the whole thing, but for the majority of it, I was. In that video, I was talking about how life is meaningless and we're all going to die. And those are things that I genuinely believe. And since then, I've, spent some time, and I spoke to Alicia about this, because she's my closest, nearest, dearest, best friend. I really want you back on this channel. Please come back. Sorry, I'll get back to the topic. I was talking to her, and I had said to her in passing that maybe I need to understand that idea, the idea that life is meaningless, a bit better, so that I'm not bothered by it as much. And to be honest, it doesn't bother me as much as it bothers other people, like it bothers me, but it doesn't bother me as much as it seems to bother other people. Like when I say things like life is meaningless, everyone stares at me like, you can't say that, you can't think that, you can't feel that way. And I don't fully understand why I can't, when it is an absolute truth, in my opinion anyway. I know that that is a huge contradiction because I just called something an absolute truth and then called it an opinion, but to me it is an absolute truth. And I think even just not to me, I think people are in denial of the fact that that is an absolute truth. And you know, if I had said something like people breathe oxygen, I don't think that I would have gotten a sour response. It is a truth. People do breathe oxygen. Everyone's going to die one day. That is an objective and an absolute truth, that we're all going to die one day. Whether or not we come back is irrelevant. We are all going to experience death. We are all going to not exist for a while. That is an absolute truth. If I say that people would still have no disagreement to it. Anyone who did have a disagreement with it would be delusional. But when I say things like life is meaningless, I feel as though people's defensiveness kicks in and they just start sort of being very belligerent about the fact that their lives aren't meaningless. And that is not what I'm asserting. I'm not asserting that any one person's life is meaningless, because life in general, the universe in itself, nature in itself, it has no prejudice. It has no it has no care or love or feelings for us at all. And just by that, nothing is meant, and therefore nothing is meaningful. Everything is meaningless. And the only thing that holds meaning is us, because we apply meaning to things. And when I was talking to my best friend Alicia, I had told her that you are not my best friend because you are my best friend. I give you that meaning. I met you, we developed a relationship, and that is why you are my best friend, because I have given you that meaning. You, in addition to that, just because you are my best friend does not instantly mean that I am yours. You also have to give me that meaning. And that's how, like, look, I would like to say that I am an idiot. I don't know anything about philosophy. I am at the very, very lowest stage of learning about philosophy, and I'm only learning at the moment about the one that actually appeals to me, and I want to go into why it appeals to me. But I'm only learning about nihilism, which is something that I feel as though appeals to me. I don't know a lot of philosophical terms. I haven't studied philosophy at any stage. I'm just self-teaching at the moment. So I don't know how much of it I have understood and how much I have understood correctly, but this is what I understand from it and why it gives me, a sense of solace. Coming from a background that was completely totalitarian, Islam as a religion, and I think most religions, but especially Islam, because Islam governs every aspect of your life. And when I say every, I mean every. Before you go to bed, you have to say a prayer. When you wake up, you have to say a prayer. Before you leave the house, you have to say a prayer. When you get back in, you have to say a prayer. Before you eat, you have to say a prayer. When someone sneezes, you have to say a prayer for them. They have to say a prayer back to you because you said a prayer for them. And then you have to say a prayer back to them because they said a prayer for you because you said a prayer for them. It is completely totalitarian. It governs every aspect of your life, and it permeates every second of your being, because that is what discipline means. That is what Islam is. It is a constant state of essentially survival mode. You are constantly thinking about whether or not each action will be logged in a book, 2 books actually, one recording your good deeds and one recording your bad deeds. You have to constantly think about whether your action is going into one of these 2 books. Everything is purely objective. And each of these books will have a number at the end of your life, and then those numbers will determine whether or not you reach a positive eternity or a negative eternity, paradise or hellfire. And that is the place that I came from. So as soon as I left Islam, and I didn't phase out of Islam, I didn't have a period of I'll be a Quranist for a while, because that is a dumb idea. I'm sorry. I don't subscribe to that notion. I don't like sitting on the fence. I am an all or nothing person. So the moment that I realized that the concept of the God that I was following was unjust, and just I didn't like him at all, and he was not worthy of my worship, and most gods are very much like him. So the concept of a god was just completely thrown out the window. And the moment I realized that, I stopped being a Muslim. And from the moment of me realizing that I was not a Muslim anymore, I just cascaded into just an existential crisis that lasted about a year. It was just me mindlessly praying for no reason anyway, and knowing that I was going to end up in hell because I didn't believe in any of it. I didn't have any... It's because Islam kind of takes it away from you. I didn't have any agency over my life. I didn't know what to do. Also, on a social level, I had no experience in anything but, being a homemaker. I was a mother to 5 of my siblings after my actual mother, my biological mother, passed away. I had no work experience. I had very few qualifications. I had finished what I think Americans would call high school and what we call sixth form or college. So I had those qualifications, but I had no in-life experience of actually working, and I had no, university degree. I didn't have any vocational course that I could just string along to a job. I didn't have any future. For the most part of my life, my future was dictated for me, and I had no problem with it because I thought an overlord would be pleased with that. And I worshipped that overlord. And I think that says a lot about me, that I've always had a problem with authority unless I respect that figure of authority. So one of the reasons why I can't go to an actual university and actually sit in a class is because I'm paying a fuck ton of money for this. And if I don't get along with the lecturer or the teacher or whoever is providing this education for me, there is no fucking way that I'm going to pass, because I am that much of a contrarian. But if I have love and respect and, for some reason, this attachment to the person who is giving me orders, I will fight for them tooth and nail. I've experienced that with God. I've experienced that with my father. I've experienced that with other people in my life. I have very strong loyalties to people who I find in some way respectable or for some reason I love. And I think it's also one of the reasons why I personally cannot be a leader, because I feel like I would exude those characteristics and people would be enthralled by me. But on a serious note, I am an extremely persuasive person, so I feel like putting me in any position of power would just be dangerous. And I'm admitting that freely. Never allow me to get into office. Never think that I'm a good person to be put into office. Don't involve me in politics. It is a bad idea. Anyways, so coming from Islam, which is a completely totalitarian religion, which is objective in every single fucking way that you can be. It is completely and utterly objective about everything. Especially if you follow the strain of Islam that I followed, which was an extremely literalist interpretation, an extremely fundamental interpretation, and an extremely toxic one. If we're calling a spade, it was extremely toxic, but it was something that I could commit to. It was something that I could discipline myself in. And I honestly felt like I had disciplined myself in. But once I realized that it was no longer the path for me, my entire worldview shattered, and I had no idea what to do with my life. And for the year after I left Islam, I had too many problems to actually sit down and think about, my place in the world, because I honestly thought it was insignificant if, Islam wasn't a thing. And I had never thought to look up other religions, because as I said, the concept of God in most religions are quite similar. So I don't think it was until this year, which was the year that I was fully liberated from my family, that I had the room to think, and that I identified many, many different things about myself, that I was able to fully unpack what I thought about the whole meaning of life trope. And I found, I discovered a lot of things about myself. I came out as bi. I'm slowly self-actualizing and realizing things about myself and giving myself time to digest things. I understand that I live a very stoic lifestyle, and that sometimes that kind of sort of tunnel vision of life is very dangerous for me. And I started looking into philosophy because I thought it would be one of the things that would help. And because I already subscribed to the notion that life is meaningless, I thought I would look into Nietzsche's work, because that's what he's known for. He's known for nihilism. That's his thing. And, I watch videos, and they're not particularly intellectual videos. They'd usually be like character studies from movies or books that I've read before, and then identifying their specific philosophy of how things would be. And I identify, and it would usually be with characters that I identify with. Like, I've been watching a lot of like Wisecrack videos and the Take videos and the other one, film theory videos. Like, those are the videos that I've been consuming over the last few months. That's just in my free time, because I want to understand why I'm attracted to these characters and why I identify with them. And they seem to carry like this sense of existential nihilism, which I identify heavily with. And I was trying to, like, I posted the question today, like, why does nihilism have such a bad reputation? Because anytime it's sort of brought up in the media, or brought up in a criticism of something, of films, of books, like, for example, the Joker is viewed as a nihilist, and I think he is. I think that I would agree with that line of thinking, but it's always sort of mentioned with negative connotations, and I don't understand why, because someone who, I don't think that I'm fully ready to identify as a nihilist, and I also don't like labels, but as someone who identifies heavily with at least existential nihilism, I don't think that I'm a very negative person. I have negative thoughts, as we all do, and I think sometimes I can come across as pessimistic, but I don't think in general that I am a very negative person. So I never quite understood why nihilism holds such a negative connotation. Because to me, and what it means to me, and why I'm so attracted to it, is that it gives me a starting point of an absolute truth, that is, life is meaningless. And I feel like this part of the video is going to get me in trouble, but I do genuinely believe that life is meaningless, and I don't know if that's problematic or if that hurts you in some way, but I deeply apologize if it does. But I do believe that it gives me a starting point that, first and foremost, my existence is meaningless. And the reason why that gives me comfort is because it's a clean slate. Just because life is meaningless, that does not mean that I can't apply my own meaning to life. And if I suddenly lose meaning, if for example my meaning in life is my work or my job, and that's my whole purpose for life, for example, it isn't. But for example, if that is the meaning of my life, and suddenly I don't like that work anymore, or it's not for me anymore, I'm able to give my life a whole new meaning. Whereas if my only meaning in life is to please God, right? If my only meaning in life is to please God, and then suddenly I have a falling out with that God, that would immediately lead me into an existential crisis. But if you have the starting point of life is meaningless, and you can give your life whatever meaning you want, that opens the door for infinite meaning, because meaning doesn't actually exist. It's like that scene in The Matrix where the kid is holding the spoon. It's the realization that the spoon doesn't exist, and that's why you can bend it with your mind. I don't know if I fully understood that part of the movie, but that is the metaphor I'm going with, the analogy that I'm going with. Meaning is the spoon. Meaning is the spoon, and you can bend it and twist it and shape it however you want, because it doesn't exist. And that's what gives me a great level of comfort, is that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if I am wrong in something. Like, for example, if I thought that tennis balls were round, sorry, not tennis balls were round. If I thought tennis balls were square shaped, it doesn't matter, because because first of all, it doesn't matter. Nothing matters. Second of all, I'm happy to be corrected, because my knowledge can constantly be updated and shaped, and I can always change it. Like, what if I thought that circular meant square? I can later change that, you know, because it doesn't matter. It just updates, you know. I don't know if I'm making any sense anymore. That analogy was a bad one. I should have kept with the spoon one, but that's what I'm trying to say, is that that's why I find great comfort in it. And I got into an argument at Zara's birthday dinner when I said that I don't think that killing animals is immoral. I was sitting next to a vegetarian. I was with David Worley. The vegetarian was Ali Malik. It probably was a bad idea to bring it up at dinner because I was also sharing a meal, like, with that vegetarian. I love Ali Malik, by the way. Go and follow him on Twitter. I think it's at Apostate Ali. But David Worley was also sitting next to me, and he started it because he brought up our live stream together, and where I had said that I don't understand. He was going on about meat being produced in a lab, and I was just mystified by the conversation because moments earlier I said, what are you talking about? I just told you that I used to slaughter chickens in my backyard like a caveman. I don't know, like, this is so out of depth for me. Like, I don't understand what you're going on about anymore. And I think that that's an honest way of being. I genuinely did not get why this was a subject we were talking about, or what I was talking about, because it was obvious that I had no bones about slaughtering animals. Obviously, I don't do that anymore. And I had said, like, in that conversation, I had said, and please hear me out, that I don't think killing animals is immoral. And Ali freaked the fuck out. He was like, really? And I was like, let me finish. I also don't think it's moral. I think that it's in a gray area because people have circumstances where they may need to eat animals. And you might say, oh, well, that's moral relativism. But no, it's moral nihilism. Because I think that there are very, very few things that people do, in my opinion, that people do that I can consider immoral. There are very, very few things. One of the things that I would consider fully immoral is rape, because I can never think of a way in which someone can justify it. I mean, if you have a justification for it, please let me know. But because of that reason, I can't objectively say that one is moral and one is immoral, you know? In the same vein, like, I don't know what is moral, because for me, everything is based on intention. It's one of the few things that I've carried out of Islam. I think that while someone can do something good, or someone can give money to someone, you know, a company can give money to another thing, an entity, a body of people, that doesn't just make it moral for the sake that they're giving charity. I think that morality is based on intention. And that is why I can't just say giving charity is moral, because I don't know why you're giving charity. Are your intentions pure? Are you trying to gain a favor? Do you want that to be paid back? Because that's not the meaning of charity. For me, morality is a very gray area. I think that the world we live in is extremely chaotic, and we're, you know, like mice just trying to scheme and apply order to what is a very chaotic universe. And I respect order. I think that order is important. I'm by no way trying to incite anarchy in anyone. I just think that most of what human beings do is in a gray area because most human beings have a reason for doing things. And that was my whole argument. I think that for me, it would be wrong to eat animals, even though I do occasionally still consume them. For the most part, I try to stick to, you know, a vegetable-based diet, because for me, I consider it wrong because I don't think that it's necessary for me to consume animals. I can get by without consuming them. But for people who live in poverty, for people who, you know, live in areas where you can't really grow vegetation, I think it would be ridiculous for them to apply that to them and say that it's immoral for them to eat animals and, you know, kill animals for food. That was my whole argument, is that I think that most of the things that people do are in states of gray areas. There are several layers of gray areas. That's why we don't just objectively, you know, give the death penalty for everyone who commits a crime. There is a sentence, and that sentence is based on how bad the crime is. And yeah, and I think, and the reason why I take comfort in that sort of view of morality is that there's always room for change and for growth. If you have objective states, if you have like, for example, killing is always wrong. Okay, killing is always wrong. That is what we hold as a moral standard. What about in times of war? What about if you need to do it for survival? There's just a lot of questions. Can you kill in self-defense? There are so many questions that are there that need to be answered. And if the objective state of being, like for example pacifists and Quakers might assert that killing is always wrong, then there is no room for growth and there is no room for a discussion. Another one that I can bring up that I learned in philosophy, I think this was through watching The Good Place, which is, I love the show. I think that it lacks some things, but I love the show and what it teaches me. I believe that Immanuel Kant or someone, I'm not sure, please feel free to correct me. He said that lying is always immoral, or one of the philosophers said that lying is always immoral. I would disagree, because I think that lying is, first of all, I'm an artist. We lie regularly. We have to lie to portray truths and shine a light on issues through analogies, which are essentially lies. And second of all, lying is something that I did a lot for, I think it's a little dramatic to call it survival, but I'm going to call it survival. While I was in a Muslim family and I just wanted to do normal things like a normal teenager, I would lie to get by. I would completely disagree that lying is immoral, but that is something that a philosopher asserted. There is no room for growth if we cannot have that conversation. And that is just an objective thing that you hold as a standard. And that is why, those kind of things attract me. I try not to see them as something that will defeat me and put me in the ground. I try to see them as a foundation to build things on. If you have nothing to start with. So, for example, I think the other thing is that the reason why nihilism attracts me is that I'm essentially someone who has lost everything in their life, and I've had to build all of this, for myself. I've lost my family. I've lost all my, major relationships from when I was a child. I lost, when I got this place, I almost had no money. I have very little to lose. I would even argue that I have nothing to lose. And I feel like having a place to build from is very, very important for me. And Stoicism has carried me a long way. But now I feel like Stoicism can be toxic for me because I no longer need to be Stoic in some senses. But nihilism just gives me a foundation to build from, which is the point I was trying to make before. Because if nothing has meaning, I can make as much meaning as I want. If nothing is truly moral or immoral, I can set my own standards for how I think life should be lived, how I can live a good life. And a lot of people have expressed the fear that if I look into the abyss for too long or delve way too far into nihilism for too long, that I'll become just like this sadistic killing spree Nazi. But the fact that I know that this is the only life I'm going to get gives me a respect for life that I never had before. It gives me a respect for every single second I spend on this planet. It gives me a respect for every single second that other people spend on this planet. Since leaving religion and feeling as though, this is the only thing I have. This life is the only thing I have. Time is the only commodity that truly matters to me. Since believing that, I have been more courteous to people. I've made it my prerogative to not waste my time. I have just been the most productive that I have ever been. And I've invested time into doing things that fulfill me and help other people. And that is all through holding a sort of nihilistic view on the world. I'm using it in a very positive way, and I feel as though nihilism has just had like the worst rap ever in philosophy. Like anytime I want to talk about it, people just shut me up and are like, no, don't say that life is meaningless. You can't say that. But it's the truth. It's the truth. And I think there was one other thing, and this is why I need to script videos, but I really don't like doing it. there was one other thing. Give me a second to remember. I'm gonna pause and then I'll come back. I remembered. So the other thing is that a lot of shit has happened to me. Like, a lot of bad things have happened to me and, you know, continue to happen to me because of the life that I've chosen to live and the family and the background that I come from. And I no longer take it as personally as I used to. I think some of it is emotionally driven, so some of it I do take personally. Obviously, I'm a human being. But most of it I don't take personally because I know that nothing is meant, because it doesn't matter. There is no meaning to life. So everything that happens to me, like whether it's a bird that shits on my arm, or a relationship that breaks down in my life, or something that just doesn't go to plan, it wasn't meant to be that way. Like, no one is putting that on me. It's just something that happened. And once I realize that it's just chaos and it just happened, I can let it go so much easier. Like, it takes so much of the pressure off of, you know, needing to understand why bad things happen to me. They don't. They're not good or bad. It's just the universe, and things just happen sometimes. And I think that that's a very, at least to me, in my brain, that's a very positive way of living. But also, everything that I strive towards and all the fruits of my work are still meaningful because I put that into the world, and that I put that meaning into my work, and it's positive. And I can take credit for everything I do, but everything that, unless it was a direct consequence of an action I made, everything that happens to me isn't because it's out of bad luck. You know what I'm saying? Like, even if I became homeless tomorrow, that may be a consequence of maybe having poor financial status, or, you know, having no family support or things like that. But overall, it doesn't matter because it's just something that happened. And that just gives me so much relief when I think about all the terrible things that have happened to me. Like, it gives me an insatiable number. Like, it is infinity to me. To me, nihilism opens the door. It has the potential of opening the door to infinite possibility for meaning, and also infinite possibility of not caring about the bad things that happen to me. It shines a whole new perspective on, you know, really sad things in my life that I just don't want to have any more feelings for. And it shines a light on it, and it just says, it happened to you, but you don't need to think about it anymore, because it just happens. Things happen to people all the time, and none of it is meant because there is no meaning. So yeah, that is my 2 cents on nihilism. I hope you found it interesting. I was going to do a Google deep dive, but then I realized I don't have a means for doing that. But I hope you enjoyed this video. It was a video because my camera was going to time out, so I had to start a new one. I hope you enjoyed this video. I genuinely hope you found it thought-provoking. I just wanted to talk about this today because it's just been, I've just wanted to talk about it for so long, and nobody lets me finish when I start. So yeah, I hope you found it insightful. If you need to correct me, or if you have a different opinion, or you just want to interrupt me while I'm making this video, please do feel free to. That is what the comment section is for. Leave me all your thoughts, your disagreements, your agreements, your love, your hatred. Leave everything in the comments for me. I love reading those comments. You know, if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. If you absolutely detested it, give me a thumbs down. Unsubscribe if you need to. But if you loved it, subscribe. Consider, you know, my content is quite varied. We are going to have some fun stuff in future because I really want to do some fun stuff. And this I would consider to be fun stuff. Yeah, and if you would like to support me in a more monetary way, I also have a Patreon that you can, you know, give me money, essentially. Monthly, or if you would prefer to make just a one-off donation, I also have a PayPal account. All the links are in the description below, as are all my socials and all the stuff that you'd need to know everything about me. So yeah, thank you for watching this video. I really enjoyed making it. I like talking about stuff like this. I don't know if I'm just being an idiot. Like, I don't know if I've completely misunderstood nihilism. But, you know, feel free to correct me if I have, because I have no problem with being an idiot and being incorrect and then later correcting myself. So, thank you, and I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.